Goes. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to wait a moment here while people come in to the room. We're very glad you're here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're so glad you've joined us. We're going to get started here in a moment, but we're just going to allow a few more people to come in. That's great. Just a moment longer. Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name's Samantha. I'm the Director of Services for the Will Rogers Foundation. I'm joined here with Elisa, my colleague and confidant in the social work department. And we're so happy to have you join us. Thank you so much. And if you're watching the playback, you're very welcome too. We created Intermission to give our community information that you can use to create more of the life that you want. And we are so glad you are here. We are going to go through an exercise in a few moments, then a series of slides, and then we'll do another exercise before we move to questions. So please feel free to add your questions at any time. There's a question box at the bottom, and there's even an option to make it anonymous if you so choose. Today, we are going to talk about anxiety and depression, which impacts all of us some point in our life, or either we know somebody who has anxiety and depression. It's very, very common. It's not something we always want to talk about, but it's very common. So I'm going to invite you all to step into what we call the beginner's mind. Neuroscience has changed tremendously over the last 5 years, and it is absolutely changing how we engage with anxiety and depression. Much of the information that you'll learn here today is relatively new, but this is all based on the work of neuroscientists, psychiatrists, and therapists, and we're so excited to be able to share it with you. Got the next slide. So we're going to start with an exercise that's called orienting. Humans are wired to orient, both to protect ourselves, meaning look around, check out our space, and to explore. It is a way we regulate our nervous system, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. And we all do it. But it can become damaged over time. So when we are under chronic stress or experience traumatic events, this ability to orient and check out our space can become damaged. In the next slide, we're going to talk about here. When we experience a lot of stress, our nervous system can move us into a state of anxiety and tension, or it can send you down into a depression or a down feeling. What's good to remember is this is always done to protect us, but it often becomes a problem because we either get stuck there or we think there's something wrong with us. So the exercise of orienting is a regulating tool for our nervous system. And we're going to talk more about why we need these tools, but we thought it'd be a great way to just kind of calm ourselves and settle in and to start. So it can calm you down if you're in anxiety, or it can give you energy if you're stuck in a depression or a low zone. So Elisa's going to take us through this orienting exercise. It's good to do anytime you feel overwhelmed or down in the dumps. And I'll let you take it from here, Elisa.
So feel your body in your chair or seat and place your feet on the floor. Let your eyes go wherever they want to go, moving slowly. We are going to focus on 3 different objects. When it feels right, When it feels right, let your eyes rest on an object for a moment. Notice the color, the shape, any sensations that come into your body when you look at it. Now move on to another object. Again, take in the color, shape, and notice any sensations that may come up when looking at it. And now notice one more object. Take your time and really look at it. Notice what is happening in your system now. Did you notice a sigh or an exhale? How about a dropping of your shoulders or maybe a tensing up?
Beautiful. Thank you, Elisa. Yeah, I noticed the first one, it took me a moment to calm down. So the first one I was a little bit bouncing around, and then the second one I started to kind of drop into the noticing. So thank you, Elisa. And we'll see you back here after the slideshow.
Great.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so what's important? Why are we going to talk about this today? We often feel that there is nothing we can do about our moods or the way we feel from day to day. Some of us even feel that there is nothing we can do when we fly off in a rage or get irritated by small things. What we will talk about today demonstrates that we can learn to track what is happening in us to bring awareness, which gives us an opportunity to make a choice. Next slide. So understanding the body's response will give you clues to what is driving your thoughts, which will help us with depression and anxiety. And I promise you, we will keep tying that in today. Your body's response, which we're going to learn more about in a few moments, and the quality of your thoughts are clues to what you need. Next slide. We are often taught to look outside of ourselves for the answers for all things in our lives. What we are showing you today, there are things you can do right now to support yourself when you are experiencing anxiety or depression or even overwhelm. Next slide. Okay, so this diagram that you're looking at is called the window of tolerance. And just bear with me with this thing. It does have a lot of pieces to it, but it's super impactful once you understand it. So we're going to talk a little bit about trauma today, but mostly the discussion's focused on what is happening in the present moment, which is the anxiety and the depression. It's often impacted by the past, but we want you to walk away with is the awareness of when you are feeling settled, or when you are feeling anxious or overwhelmed, or when you are feeling depressed and collapsed. So we're going to start in this yellow part here in the middle. This is the window of tolerance, it's called. This is where we want to live most of the time. This is the place you feel relatively calm and at ease. And it's important to note because when we feel safe and at ease, the thinking brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, is the place that we dream or plan. So when we get overwhelmed, anxious, or down in the dumps, the brain sends chemicals to shut this part of the brain down. So when we're in this window of tolerance, we feel safe, we can think, we can dream, and we can plan. And when we are feeling overwhelmed, that part turns off, which you can imagine in your life what that means for you. So now let's see what it's like when we are out of the window of tolerance. So up in the top here, it's the red part, is the anxious state, right? So you might feel angry, agitated, in addition to anxious. Your body might want to fight or even run away. This is not something you choose. This is something that happens automatically in your body. Your nervous system is taking over and is trying to protect you from something and to adapt to whatever's going on. So I want to mention here that, because I mentioned anger. So anger is not a bad thing. It's a move to action. And when we see something that is not just or not fair, our anger is what says no. So it's a good thing. So the objective is not to never go up. It's to be able to come back down and kind of come back into the window of tolerance so that we don't stay up here. And when we stay up here, that's the anxiety that we're talking about. We spend a little bit too much in that anxious state. So, and then of course, I'm just going to state the obvious, but when we spend a lot of time in this anxious state, we develop what is called an anxiety disorder. So it seems kind of scary and out there, but really what it is your body's alarm system. So now let's look at what happens when there's a lot of depression in the system, when we feel low, when we feel unmotivated, procrastinating, those kind of things. We might also feel spacey, numb, frozen. And remember, this is on a continuum. We're very confused about depression in this culture. We think it means I can't get off the couch. It certainly can mean that, but it can also mean I can't problem solve and I'm feeling despair. So I just wanted to pause. This is where I wanted to pause because this is really important to take in. So when the brain is overwhelmed or frightened, it will shut off the part of us that does the thinking, the dreaming, and the planning. So this is where we can get stuck. This is where we need tools and good habits to help us through anxious or depressive times or moments, which is where that orienting comes in. That's a tool, but we have to know when to use the tool and we have to know why. There's a lot of tools out there, but a lot of people don't understand what they're doing with them. So we can use them once we know what's happening inside of us. So another thing to remember here is that when we get pushed out of our window of tolerance and we are in either anxiety or depression, this is our body's response to what it believes is survival mode, right? So I'm sure you've heard of survival mode, fight or flight or freeze. If you haven't, it's so interesting, and we always talk about it here, so come on back and we'll probably be talking about it again. But when we go into survival mode, we are acting from how our brain dealt with something similar in the past. So lots of people, this is where to spend time figuring out like, hey, why am I feeling anxious most of the time? What's going on? Also want to let you know, some of you might know that our brains are pattern matching machines, which means our brains are continually scanning the environment to look for something that might have happened before. So when traumatic events happen to us, or if childhood was chaotic, our brain stores all that in a part of the brain called the hippocampus, and it's running through it all the time. Does this remind me of that time? Is it like that time when we got hurt? Is it like that time when there was an accident? And if it is going to push us out of the window of tolerance, either into anxiety, which is a nervous system response, or depression, which is also a nervous system response. So one way to be able to change this is to become aware, because without awareness, we don't realize we have a choice. We're kind of running on automatic pilot. So here's an example. You have say you have a conflict with a colleague at work and you go home and it's unresolved. and you just feel lousy about it. And it's really uncomfortable. I'm not sure what to do with the feelings. So a healthy response would be to talk it through with a partner, a friend, a family member, maybe get the pet that you love so much and kind of just be with the pet. That is creating some connection, which our brains love. What we tend to do is to go to our coping strategies. And coping strategies can be anything from binge watching Netflix, drinking alcohol, drugs are in that category, eating too much, doing things that over time can be harmful to us. And again, they're coping strategies, so they probably helped you through a difficult period in your life, but they're no longer serving you. So anytime that you notice, oh, I've been on the couch for 5 hours and watching Netflix or whatever, then you can notice that you're outside of your window of tolerance, because your window of tolerance it's a relaxed state, but usually 5 hours is probably too much, and it's indicating that you're lacking motivation. So the more that you can notice that you are feeling agitated or depressed, you will broaden your ability to find a different choice. And this just is where the choice comes in, because oftentimes we don't feel like we have a choice. We push through anxiety. I know lots of high functioning people who are like highly anxious, and it's very difficult for them. And we don't really know what to do to support each other, but science is helping us out here for sure. We're really getting to some good stuff, and I have a few more things to share. So when we feel like we have a choice, that's where the tools come in. So the orienting exercise that we started with, and I'm going to give you another exercise in a few moments. And it's not going to work perfectly all the time. And I want you to remember that this is a new thing that you're learning to do. So practice is key, like learning a language, playing an instrument, anything that you did as a kid, learn to play soccer or football, whatever you had to practice. Okay, next slide, Elisa. So this is called the autonomic ladder, and it was created by a woman named Deb Dana, who's a therapist who studied this polyvagal theory, which you can go and read about. It's super fascinating, but I'm going to give you this, I want to give you this graphic to look at, because it's just another way of saying what we just said. Okay, it's just some people like the ladder metaphor. So the top rung of the ladder there is what they call the ventral vagal, and this is when we are inside the window of tolerance. We feel safe, we feel curious, we're interested in the world around us. The attitude here is I'm feeling at ease and I can manage whatever comes my way. I feel empowered and connected, and I see the bigger picture and connect to the world and people in it. So that's the window of tolerance that we just spoke about. So down on the ladder, the next rung down, is the sympathetic nervous system response. And this is where we have fight or flight. Makes us want to, I don't know, knock somebody out or run away. Like, I'm getting out of here. And that's the red zone that we were talking about before. This is where anxiety will show up. Agitation, a frantic feeling. These are all ways to describe anxiety. If you have anxiety, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the attitude here is, I am overwhelmed. I'm having a hard time keeping up. I feel anxious. I feel irritated. The world seems dangerous, chaotic, and unfriendly. So you can start to feel what happens when we get into an anxious state. We're starting to feel like the world is no longer our friend, which will create a feeling of go away. I'm gonna start to move away from whatever this is that's hurting me, which leads us to the final rung of the ladder, which is the place where depression shows up. The attitude here is I am buried under a huge load and I can't get out. I'm alone in my despair. The world is empty and dark. Now, remember, this is on a continuum. So your mind might not go to the world as empty and dark. Maybe it goes to, I can't catch up. I need a break. I'm stuck here. Nobody's here to help me. Those are all indicators that you've moved out of the window and that this is where the awareness comes in, where we start to go, oh, wait a minute. oh, I feel like I'm all alone. This is not a present moment thought. Something's happening to me. I need to pay attention here. So when we're in that collapse state, which is that feeling of like, oh no, I'm all alone, you can employ good habits here, and that will help you move up the ladder. Now, it's easy to say employ good habits. So what each of you can do is you can write down things that help you get into or stay in that window of tolerance. Being out in nature, exercise, being with friends, being with family, a good meal, a healthy meal, like all those things that you do that make you feel alive. Yoga, soccer, ice skating, it doesn't matter. So once you start to realize those are the things that I turn to, when you're in these collapse states or lower on the ladder, you can do things to help get you up. Now, obviously, we all have to feel our feelings. So the object isn't to move away so quickly. It's when we get stuck. And that's what we call depression. And it's when we run really high all the time. And that's what we call anxiety. So they are the body's clue telling you that something's going on here and I need some help. All right, next slide, Elisa. So tracking is what we're talking about here. It's tracking what's going on in your body. So mapping through the window of tolerance or the ladder, and they help you come to a safe place where you can think, dream, and plan. All of what we're talking about is for protection. So everything that the brain does is to protect you and to keep you safe. Some of it was created a very long time ago when you were a child. If this world was not safe, your body learned how to keep it safe. So there's nothing wrong with your body that it's doing it. It's actually quite wise. And it's letting you know that something's going on. So they become clues like, oh, I haven't left the couch all weekend. Maybe I need some connection. Or, you know, my brain's on fire. Maybe I need to calm myself down. Like maybe I need to step away from what I'm doing. And then finally, learning how to recognize where you are in the window of tolerance helps you to know what is needed and what you need. Next slide. So we are going to do a exercise called soft belly breathing. It's only going to take a few moments. But this is again where a tool comes in handy, and we want you to have real life tools that you can walk away with. You can do soft belly breathing in your car, you can do it at home, you can do it at your desk, you can do it at the theater, wherever you are. It can help you come back into a safe space. And again, this takes practice. So try to be kind to yourself and allow yourself time to learn how to interact with your body in a different way. Because remember, this is you interacting in a very different way. Unless you're doing that already, then good job and amazing. And I'm curious, how did you learn it? But if not, for the majority of us, this is learning like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Is there something I can do here? So let's try the soft belly breathing. And we have a resource page that we're going to share. So there's a link to this on YouTube. It's a 5-minute one done by James Gordon, who created soft belly breathing. I believe he created it. He was one of my teachers, and they do some brilliant work at the Center for Mind Body Medicine. So just get comfortable in whatever you're seated in. If you're on a chair, if you're standing, doesn't really matter. Have your feet be flat on the floor and just soften your shoulders and allow the muscles in your face to soften a little bit. And you can lower your gaze or even shut your eyes if you want, whatever you're comfortable with, it does not matter. And just allow your breath to deepen. Allow your belly to be soft and expand on the in-breath and relax even more on the out-breath. You can breathe in the word soft and breathe out the word belly. And if you are having trouble connecting with your breath, just place a hand on your belly. And if thoughts come, and they most certainly will, just allow them to be there and bring the focus back to the breath. And that is soft belly breathing. And they've done some really amazing research about placing our hands on our body. I realized that was one thing that they ask us to do is connect, put your hand on your belly. The research shows that some of the same chemicals as a hug are released, which are good chemicals. Next slide. So what else can you do? This is a book I recently read. It is written by an MD who had anxiety his whole life. And he's written a brilliant book about it. And he has short chapters, so it's not intimidating. It's super easy to read, gives you lots of exercises at the end. So I really recommend that one. And we're just encouraging you to keep learning. The first one is a link for coping strategies in childhood trauma. It's a good discussion with Gabor Mate. He talks a lot about addiction. So if you have addictions in your life or you know somebody who's addicted, the way he speaks about it is tremendously helpful. There's also a YouTube on Mel Robbins interviewing Russell Kennedy, who wrote the book, and they talk about anxiety in a very easy to understand way. So super good stuff there. And then there's the guided soft belly breathing. So we'll just invite Elisa back on here. And I think we have some questions, Elisa.
Yes, we do. Let me pull those up. And then I'll put the YouTube links in the chat box. So if anybody
Okay.
wants to use those or check those out, they'll be there.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
So the first question we have is, I know that I'm in a state of freeze most of the time. I constantly feel stuck. I want to change this, but I feel so uncomfortable with attempting the change. What are some things I can do to make the process more comfortable for myself?
Oh, good question. So yeah, first of all, good job noticing, right? I mean, at least you chime in as well here. I mean, if you are noticing that you are shut down most of the time, that's literally half the battle. Like so many people are walking around without that awareness. So good job for noticing. And I would encourage you to keep learning, to find out there's probably reasons why you're freezing, and that can be really uncomfortable and difficult. So I just want to validate that. And it is possible to move through it, and the soft belly breathing and the orienting, they're probably not going to help pull you totally out of it, but it might give you a feeling of awareness. And that's really key. That's really what you're looking for here, is awareness to what is happening. And then, sometimes we need help from either a therapist or a doctor if we're really stuck in depression or anxiety. And there's also a lot that we can do on our own.
And I do think it's also important to know that change is uncomfortable.
That's a good one. Thanks, Elisa, for adding that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like the uncomfortable feeling is there to help. Like it's kind of like it's like keep going, right? Like, keep going. You don't stay here, but we often stay in it.
Yeah,
because we don't know.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Another question we have is it quote unquote normal to go up and down the autonomic ladder throughout the day?
Oh, good. I'm glad they mentioned this. Absolutely. Yep. We are human. So we might feel relatively calm, get in the car, somebody cuts us off, and then we're super irritated, agitated, or scared. But then if our nervous system is relatively healthy, we'll come back down into the window of tolerance after, I don't know, it depends on the situation. If it takes all day, that probably means that there's some attention needed to your nervous system. But absolutely, I mean, you're going to kind of actually at the bottom of the window intolerance, they sometimes put rest and relaxation, because you're kind of on the border there. So yeah, that's a great question. We have another one.
Yes. How can we help others become aware of their activation without shaming them to keep ourselves feeling safe and engaged?
Right. It's a good question, right? Because Elisa and I, we talk about shame a lot because we're both study it, and we know that it's a painful experience when we experience shame, and we want to avoid it. And this person sounds like they want to avoid hurting somebody, but that somebody's out of their window of tolerance. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
I guess one thing I would say is we can only really control our own nervous system, and by control meaning like our if a loud noise goes off, you will see me jump. So I'm not going to have there's no control there. How I come down from it is where I gain choice and access to myself. So I would say they're probably upsetting your nervous system by what they're doing. And so maybe the work lies in your response, but I don't know, Elise, you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to like when we talk about how sometimes we are taking on someone else's nervous system, like their dysregulation, right? And we're trying to like regulate ourselves while still trying to attune to their nervous system.
Right.
So I think it's just kind of having the awareness and taking a moment to say like, this is not my thing, this is their thing. And
Right.
maybe I need to step away for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And you brought up something else I was thinking, co-regulation, which is fascinating. And this will definitely change us in the future, but we're not there yet. But the impact we have on each other. So kind of like if I come into the office, I'm super agitated, that's contagious. Lisa might become agitated too, and she might not even know why. She's just becoming agitated because my nervous system is agitated. Those of you out there who have children or spend time with children, you can regulate a child, right? Like they're super upset. Normally we don't get super upset with them. Like the example I use is if a child says, I'm really scared, and we say, oh my God, I'm so scared too. No. That would just, it would freak them out. It's the idea is we regulate them. Oh no, it's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're okay. And then the child's like, oh, okay, I'm okay. That's co-regulation. That's what that is. And we do it all the time. We're doing it all the time. So that was a good question. That might be the last of our questions. Is that right, Lisa?
We have one more. I don't know.
Oh,
if you
great.
the last
Yeah,
one.
let's do it. Let's do it.
I sometimes feel like I'm above the window of tolerance at work during certain situations. I find that it would be hard to orient or do belly breathing in that moment. I do not ask for breaks when situations occur because I don't want to seem like I cannot handle my job. What are some ways I can communicate to my boss at the time that I need a mental health break?
Oh, the tricky one, isn't it? It's tricky because we can't control our environments. So I think I would say to the individual, you have to know if you're safe to say to your boss or supervisor, like, hey, I'm not feeling great about in this situation. It sounds like there's not an atmosphere where you can do it, because if we feel safe, we often feel like, oh, I can say this. If we don't feel safe, if the atmosphere isn't safe, we hold it in. And this is a place where I think workplaces, we could all get better here, where we are allowing people time and space to regulate themselves. And I can imagine some people in the working world would be like, that's crazy. But when we do it, people will stay longer. They will feel better. So in this case, it would be amazing if you could talk to your supervisor or boss, but if you can't, you can go to the bathroom. You could take a walk, if you get breaks or your lunch break, find a way to get somewhere where you can regulate yourself a little bit. You want to add to that one too, Elisa? You have any thoughts there?
It could even be as much as like, I'm gonna go check stock, or I'm
Perfect.
gonna go check a theater.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody has to know, like, this is my time where I regulate my nervous system. But you can find ways. And there's lots of different tools. Like I said, I mean, you might not want to walk around with your hand on your chest, but if you're doing this on occasion, nobody's going to pay attention to you. There's, we can get into this in another episode, but there's like there's tapping. You could Google tapping, because that's another thing you can do, where you can kind of tap parts of your body to regulate yourself. But yeah, I think taking care of yourself is super important. So going to the bathroom, checking stock, getting away from everybody, finding time, and making it a priority. Super important. Well, those are really good questions, and we really appreciate everybody joining us. And we hope to see you back here another time. We will have a short survey that will be sent out by Zoom after this. We'd love to hear your feedback. If there's something that we're doing that you want to see more of, or if there's a topic we haven't covered, please let us know. This program is here for you, and we want it to serve you. That is really our goal. So please let us know, and we will see you next time. Oh, somebody's just asked if they'll get a copy of it, and I sure could. Yeah, we can send it out if you registered with your email. You will get a copy. We'll send this out.
And we always post them on our website as well, so it'll be available there.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. You're brilliant, Elisa. Thanks for being here. All right. Bye, everyone.